Shri Sai Sat Charita, the wonderful life and teachings of Shri Sai Baba. Sainath Maharaj ki jai, Ananda Koti Brahmanda Nayaka jai, Om Sai Ram. Today I'll be reading the chapters 16 and 17. Quick Brahmagnana. These two chapters relate the story of a rich gentleman who wanted Brahmagnana quickly from Sai Baba. Preliminary. The last chapter described how Mr. Cholkar's vow of small offering was completed and accepted. In that story, Sai Baba showed that he would accept with appreciation any small thing offered with love and devotion. But if the same thing was offered with pride and haughtiness, he would reject it. Being himself full of Sat, Chit, Anand, existence, knowledge, and bliss, he did not care much for more outward formalities, but if an offering was made in meek and humble spirit, the same was welcome and he accepted it with pleasure and avidity. In fact, there is no person more liberal and benevolent than a Sadguru, like Sai Baba. He cannot be compared to the Chintamani jewel, the philosopher's stone which satisfies desires, the Kalpataru, the celestial tree which fulfills our desires, or the Kamadin, the celestial cow which yields what we desire. For they gives us only what we desire. But the Sadguru gives us the most precious thing that is inconceivable and inscrutable, the reality. Now let us hear how Sai Baba disposed of a rich man who came to him and implored him to give him Brahmagnana. There was a rich gentleman. Unfortunately, his name and whereabouts were not mentioned, who was very prosperous in his life. He had amassed a large quantity of wealth, houses, fields, and lands, and had many servants and dependents. When Baba's fame reached his ears, he said to a friend of his that he was not in want of anything, and so he would go to Shirdi and ask Baba to give him Brahmagnana, which, if he got, would certainly make him more happy. His friend disordered him, saying, "It is not easy to know Brahmagnana, and especially so for an avaricious man like you, who is always engrossed in wealth, wife, and children. Who will, in your quest of Brahmagnana, satisfy you that won't give away even a pice in charity?" Not minding his friend's advice, the fellow engaged a return journey tanga and came to Shirdi. He went to the masjid, saw Sai Baba, fell at his feet and said, "Baba, hearing that you show the Brahmagnana to all who come over here without any delay, I have come here all the way from my distant place. I am much fatigued by the journey, and if I get the Brahmagnana from you, my troubles will be well paid and rewarded." Baba then replied, "Oh, my dear friend, do not be anxious. I shall immediately show you the Brahman. All my dealings are in cash and never on credit. So many people come to me and ask for wealth, health, power, honor, position, cure of diseases, and other temporal matters. Rare is the person who comes here to me and asks for Brahmagnana. There is no dearth of persons asking for worldly things, but as persons interested in spiritual matters are very rare, I think it a lucky and auspicious moment when persons like you come and press me for Brahmagnana. So I show to you with pleasure the Brahman with all its accompaniments and complications." Saying this, Baba started to show him the Brahman. He made him sit there and engaged him in some other talk or affair and thus made him forget his question for the time being. Then he called a boy and told him to go to one Nandu Marwari and get from him a hand loan of rupees 5. The boy left and returned immediately, saying that Nandu was absent and his house was locked. Then Baba asked him to go to the Bala grocer and get from him, and then said loan. This time also the boy was unsuccessful. This experiment was repeated again twice or thrice with the same result. Sai Baba was, as we know, the living and moving Brahman incarnate. Then someone may ask, why did he want the paltry sum of 5 rupees and why did he try hard to get it on loan? Really, he did not want that sum at all. He must have been fully knowing that Nandu and Bala were absent, and he seems to have adopted this procedure as a test for the seeker of Brahman. That gentleman had a roll or bundle of currency notes in his pocket, and if he was really earnest, he would not have sat quiet and be a mere onlooker. When Baba was frantically trying to get a paltry sum of rupees 5, he knew that Baba would keep his word and repay the debt, and that the sum wanted was insignificant. Still, he could not make up his mind and advance the sum. Such a man wanted from Baba the greatest thing in the world, namely the Brahmagnana. Any other man who really loved Baba would have at once given rupees 5 instead of being a mere onlooker. It was otherwise with this man. He advanced no money, nor did he sit silent, but began to be impatient as he was in the haste to return and implored Baba, saying, "O Baba, please show me the Brahma Gnana soon." Baba replied, "O my dear friend, did you not understand all the procedure that I went through, sitting in this place for enabling you to see the Brahmagnana? It is, in short, this. For seeing Brahmagnana, one has to give 5 things, that is, surrender 5 things, namely, first one, 5 pranas, vital forces; second one, 5 senses; third one, mind; fourth one, intellect; and fifth, ego. This path of Brahmagnana, of self-realization, is as hard as to tread on the edge of the razor. Sai Baba then gave rather a long discourse on the subject, and purport of which is given below. Qualifications for Brahmagnana or self-realization. All persons do not see or realize the Brahman in their lifetime. Certain qualifications are absolutely necessary. Number 1, mumuksa, or intense desire to get free. He who thinks that he is bound and that he should get free from bondage, and works earnestly and resolutely to that end, and who does not care for any other thing, is qualified for the spiritual life. Virakti, or a feeling of disgust with the things of this world and the next. Unless a man feels disgusted with the things, emoluments, and honors which his action would bring in this world and the next, he has no right to enter into the spiritual realm. Antarmukta, introversion. Our senses have been created by God with the tendency to move forward, and so man always looks outside himself and not inside. He who wants self-realization and immortal life must turn his gaze inwards and look to his inner self. Catharsis from sins. Unless a man has turned away from wickedness and stopped from doing wrong and has entirely composed himself, and unless his mind is at rest, he cannot gain self-realization even by means of knowledge. The fifth one, right conduct. Unless a man leads a life of truth, that is, an insight, a life of celibacy, he cannot get God realization. Sixth, preferring Shreyas to Prayas. The good to the pleasant. There are two sorts of things, namely the good and the pleasant. The former deals with spiritual affairs and the latter with mundane matters. Both these approach man for acceptance. He has to think and choose one of them. The wise man prefers the good to the pleasant, but the unwise, through greed and attachment, chooses the pleasant. Control of the mind and the senses. The body is the chariot and the self is its master. Intellect is the charioteer and the mind is the reins. The senses are the horses and the sense objects their paths. He who has no understanding and whose mind is unrestrained, his senses unmanageable, like the vicious horses of the charioteer, does not reach his destination, but goes through the round of births and deaths. But he who has understanding and whose mind is restrained has his senses being under control, like the good horse of the charioteer, reaches that place, that is, the state of self realization. Hence, he is not born again. The man who has understanding as his charioteer guide and is able to rein his mind reaches the end of the journey, which is the supreme abode of all pervading Vishnu. Purification of the mind. Unless a man discharges satisfactorily and disinterestedly the duties of his station in life, his mind will not be purified, and unless his mind is that viveka, discrimination between the unreal and the real, and the vairagya, non attachment to the unreal, crop up and lead to self realization. Unless egoism is dropped, avarice got rid of, and the mind made desiredness, self realization is not possible. The idea that I am the body is a great delusion, and attachment to this idea is the cause of bondage. Leave off this idea and attachment, therefore, if you want to get the goal of self realization. The necessity of a guru, the knowledge of the self, if so subtle and mystic that no one could, by his own individual effort, ever hope to attain it. So the help of another person, teacher, who has himself got self-realization is absolutely necessary. What others cannot give with great labor and pains, can be easily gained with the help of such a teacher. For he has walked on the path himself and can easily take the disciple step by step on the ladder of spiritual progress. And lastly, the Lord's grace is the most essential thing. When the Lord is pleased with anybody, he gives him viveka and vairagya and takes him safe beyond the ocean of mundane existence. The self cannot be gained by the study of Vedas, nor by intellect, nor by much learning. He whom the self chooses gains it. To him the self reveals its nature, says the Katha Upanishad. After the dissertation was over, Baba turned to the gentleman and said, "Well, sir, there is in your pocket the Brahman in the form of 50 times 5, that is rupees 250 rupees. Please take that out." The gentleman took out from his pocket the bundle of currency notes, and to his great surprise found, on counting them, there were 25 notes of 10 rupees each. Seeing this omniscience of Baba, he has moved and fell at Baba's feet and craved for his blessings. Then Baba said to him, "Roll up your bundle of Brahmagnana," namely currency notes. Unless you get rid completely of your avarice or greed, you will not get the real Brahmagnana. How can we, whose mind is engrossed in wealth, progeny, and prosperity, expect to know the Brahmagnana without removing away his attachment for the same? The illusion of attachment or the love for money is the deep eddy, which is whirlpool of pain, full of crocodiles in the form of conceit and jealousy. He who is desireless can alone cross this whirlpool. Greed and Brahma are as poles as under. They are eternally opposite to each other. Where there is greed, there is no room for thought or meditation of the Brahma. Then, how can a greedy man get dispassion and salvation? For a greedy man, there is no peace, neither contentment nor certainty. If there be even a little trace of greed in mind, all the sadhanas are of no avail. Even the knowledge of a well read man who is not free from the desire of the fruit or reward of his actions, and who has got no disgust for the same, is useless and can't help him in getting self realization. The teachings of a guru are of no use to a man who is full of egoism and who always thinks about the sense objects. Purification of mind is absolutely necessary. Without it, all our spiritual endeavors are nothing but useless show and pomp. It is therefore better for one to take only what he can digest and assimilate. My treasury is full, and I can give anyone what he wants, but I have to see whether he is qualified to receive my gift. If you listen to me carefully, you will be certainly benefited. While sitting in this masjid, I never speak any untruth. When a guest is invited to a house, all the members of the household and other friends and relations that happen to be present are entertained along with the guest. So, all those that were present in the masjid at this time could partake of the spiritual feast that was served by Baba for the rich gentleman. After getting Baba's blessings, one and all, including the gentleman, left the place quite happy and contented. Special characteristic of Baba. There are many saints who, leaving their houses, stay in forests, caves, and hermitages, and remaining in solitude, try to get liberation or salvation for themselves. They do not care for other people and are always self absorbed. Sai Baba was not of such a type. He had no home, no wife, no progeny, nor any relation near or distant. Still, he lived in the world. He begged his bread from 4 or 5 houses, always lived at the foot of the neem tree, carried on worldly dealings, and taught all the people how to act and behave in this world. Rare are the sadhus and saints who, after attaining God vision, strive for the welfare of the people. Sai Baba was the foremost of these, and therefore says Hemadpant. Blessed is the country, blessed is the family, and blessed are the Chate parents, where this extraordinary, transcendent, precious, and pure jewel Sai Baba was born. बोलो श्री सतगुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय. Bo to Shri Sai, peace be to all.